Welcome back to Speed Street, everyone. Conor Daly here. My good friend and co-host Joey Molinaro is currently on dad duty. He's got a baby to take care of, and you know what? The poor guy. He texts us today, and he hasn't slept in weeks. It sounds like, and you know what? Apparently, that's what being a dad's all about. So we are sad to see Joey not with us this weekend, or this week. But yeah, he's got to do important things. It was very more important than me being hungover in Vegas and not making the show. So I his excuse is much better than mine. But we have a very, very exciting show today. Honestly, I'm very pumped about it because we have an incredible guest, Chase Briscoe, currently in the Cup Series playoffs. Very good friend of mine. Known him for several years. He has been my midget racing teammate as well. He has really just been a cool dude and fellow Indiana man. But the reason we talked to him is really because of the announcement that was made that I'm going to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver. So we're very, very excited about that. Lightly give yourselves rounds of applause because you guys are probably hearing it here first on Speed Street. It's very, very important that we make this announcement with the whole Dirty Mo Media crew. Ben, what's your first initial reaction when you heard I was going to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver?
I was stoked, man. I mean, it's you don't often see open wheel guys coming over and messing around with these big old heavy stock cars. A lot of horsepower here in North Carolina, but you're gonna be the first one in a while. So I'm stoked for you, man. How'd it come together? Let's just get right into it. Like I know you've been talking about you've ran some truck races in the past and everything, but the Cup Series, man, this is huge. Like what's been the process for that?
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting because there's a lot of talk about stuff in racing. I think one interesting thing that people don't really might not see or hear about, but there's always chatter in these paddocks about someone maybe doing something or someone potentially. We've all been close to doing a deal somewhere, and I've talked about doing certain other Xfinity races or certain other maybe a cup race here or there. Like, man, it would be really cool to do the double at Indy, like the road course and the IndyCar race and the Cup Series. But it's never really gotten down the road. But honestly, it's all thanks to our sponsor, BitNile. I mean, it's Todd and his group. As soon as we announced our deal in IndyCar, right? As soon as BitNile became a prominent sponsor in the motor racing industry, they got hit up by everyone because in racing, well, it's not to say that there's no ethics, but it's like as soon as someone spends money in motorsport, other people want that money. And so they started hearing from a lot of teams in NASCAR, even in IndyCar as well, kind of all over the place. So again, understandable, but I'm going to fight for my sponsor with a sword, shield, weapons, whatever is necessary. And so obviously, there's interesting business propositions that are proposed. And to be fair, the Cup Series is doing great. And I think there's a lot of great things, to be involved there. So I actually only found the funniest part about this story is that I actually only got asked the question if I wanted to go Cup Series racing Laguna Seca the night before the race. Just a couple weeks ago. Todd looks at me. He's like, "Hey, I got a surprise for you." I said, "All right." He said, "You're going NASCAR Cup racing." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, we're going to run the Roval in a couple weeks." I said, "All right, but like, like really, or like we're trying to?" And sure enough, we were me and my manager and like my manager Andrew was on it, and this deal was put together. And obviously, the interesting and honest thing about motor racing at this level too is that if there's a sponsor behind it, you can do anything you want essentially. And I appreciate that because I have not had that luxury in the past in my career. I've been very, very I've struggled with a lot of different things. And this sponsor, this partner, I prefer calling them more a partner because they do feel like my family now. Todd and his family they feel like my family. But we had this great opportunity to go NASCAR Cup racing, to dip our toes in the water per se. And the 50 car, which we'll be driving, was available, and it's a great group of people over there as well. Floyd Mayweather's group of people as well, which is a very cool alignment. I don't know Floyd yet, but I hope to hang out with Floyd. I feel like we'll be friends. And it's amazing how quick things can happen. NASCAR was very, kind enough to, to approve me, racing in the Cup Series. And, road courses are obviously what I have, most experience on. I think if it was, if we wanted to make a debut at an oval, it might have been more of a difficult process. But yeah, very, very excited to bring, our sponsorship, our partnership to NASCAR, to the NASCAR world. I respect the series so much. And I am such a huge fan of NASCAR. I have all the die-casts when I was a kid. When I commentated on SRX, I thought it was the coolest thing ever that I was talking about Michael Waltrip, Bobby Labonte, Tony Stewart. I find it so cool that we're under the Dirty Mo Media banner with Dale Earnhardt Jr. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to this that is very, very special. Not a lot of, drivers can say that they've raced in, the IndyCar series and the Cup Series. And so, yeah, it was a long, it was a long few weeks, but to be fair, that's not a long time to get things going. And we've been flat out working to get it ready, working to get prepared. I've been calling people. I've been trying to set up interviews like the one we have coming up with Chase Briscoe to get some advice. And I plan on continually just seeking advice from people, whatever it is. And yeah, we're going to go cup racing. It's kind of an exciting deal. You'll be there, Ben, to see the seat fit. We're going to go get seat fitted here very, very soon. And Ben, do you have any advice for me? What's your advice? What do we got?
My racing experience stops at go-karting, so I don't know how much how much knowledge I can really give to you. I think just enjoy it, just have fun, like just go in there. Don't put too much expectations on you. Just enjoy it. It's going to be a fun 2 weeks for you. I think I'm very thankful that you guys are letting me be a small part of it. Just to go and capture your whole experience. Speaking of Dale, what was his reaction when you told him? If you have told him yet, I'm assuming you have.
Yeah, so I text Dale because we were trying to work on the announcement like through Dirty Mo, because obviously they've supported us so much here at Speed Street, and it's very, very cool. I sent Dale I tried to call Dale. He did not answer my phone call, which I understand. But I sent him then a long text. I was like, "Hey man, just curious, wanted to get your opinion on how we could potentially announce this deal of me making my debut in the Cup Series." And his only word response was badass. That was it. So he said that, and he said definitely want to announce through Dirty Mo or the Dale Jr. download. And then when I called Mike, obviously Mike Davis, Mike nearly, I thought he was gonna pee his pants. Like he was very, very excited. He's like, I can't believe this. And Tony, you're a junior, being my crew chief, obviously Absolutely. That's really, really cool. It's a great connection there. And honestly, at the time that we are recording this, I don't know the public opinion yet of what it's going to be when it's announced, because we haven't really announced it yet. But
I think we have a general idea.
But I think it'll be hilarious. Like I think it'll be cool. Again, it's something that we're going to be honest with it. It's not like I was handed this opportunity. We have a partnership with BitNile. They are kind enough to provide this opportunity for us to make their business stronger and to potentially give me a great opportunity that I would have never had otherwise. So, it's something that I truly want to embrace. I want to, I will never forget it. Like, we're getting diecast cars, we're getting merch. There's going to be t-shirts. And I can add it to my little collection. I've got the Xfinity car that I raced for Roush is I have a diecast of. There's only one, I think. And then I have both of the trucks that I raced as diecast as well. And I love diecast because I used to collect them as a kid. So it's going to be a really, really cool thing to just take in. And again, it's the top level. That's the NASCAR Cup Series. Getting to go up against a lot of incredibly talented drivers. And I want to make sure that they know that, hey, I'm not expecting to go out there and, clean the floor with anyone. I just want to learn. I want to learn. I want to do all the laps. I'm going to go in with the proper respect that the series deserves. And realistically, thankfully, I have a really good friend in AJ Allmendinger, who we obviously interviewed recently, who I spent 30 minutes on the phone with the other night after we interviewed him, just talking about the details of the car. And you'll hear an incredible conversation with Chase Briscoe as well on just the details. Because again, a lot of the stuff that I need to know is very simple for them. Because again, it's a completely different race car. Now, I've driven sequential gearbox sports cars before that are heavy, but this is very different. So there's going to be a lot of things that I need to, get to grips with. But it's cool to be able to have, a good group of friends, a good group of resources that, again, when we get on the racetrack, I'm sure they'll just pump me out of the way, but at least we know before that we were friends, and after we're probably still going to have a beer together.
It'll be with a lot of care. So I think you'll be okay.
Exactly.
My question is, have you talked to Marco Andretti? Because I feel like you run in the Cup Series, you run the Xfinity Series. Are you trying to one up them, or is just what's going on?
No. The funny part is I was on that bachelor party a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and I had known about the NASCAR deal. Like it was getting down the road of being done, and like Alex Rossi and some of our other friends are like going to go there for Marco's race at the Roval, and I was like, hey, are you guys going to stay Sunday by chance, like for the Cup race? And like, they were all like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And then now a couple of my friends from Indianapolis are hoping to catch a ride like on Alex's plane to get to Charlotte for the race. But now, like, I had to tell Alex eventually and Marco because, we want to try to make this a really cool weekend. Because again, I'm very excited for Marco. I think Marco's going to do really good. I think he's going to be very competitive in his Xfinity debut. I think he knows what he's doing, and I think it's going to be really cool to watch. So hopefully we can have a great weekend. It's going to actually feel great because there will be a familiar face there. You know what I mean? And I think Sage Karam's racing as well in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah.
And so again, two guys, really good friends of mine, and it's very cool that we all kind of get to be there together. And it's Marco's first text to me was like, yeah, I can't wait to clean off the track for you. And I was like, that's hilarious. I was like, this is funny how this worked out, but there's going to be a large IndyCar presence at the Charlotte Roval, and I hope everyone tunes in to watch. I think it'll be a great weekend.
Absolutely. And maybe even Santino show up too.
I hope not.
Have you talked to him? Maybe get some advice,
Zero talks.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I'm super excited. So we got Talladega this upcoming weekend for NASCAR. It's the Roval next week. They're gonna see what happens there. We talked to Chase what to expect with Talladega. Very, very interesting about this whole. I think the whole round of this playoffs for NASCAR is just unreal with how the Texas race went. You have Talladega and the Roval for the cutoff. I think it's gonna be insane. Are you worried about interfering with any playoff drivers with that being a cutoff race?
I don't think I'll be near any of the playoff drivers, honestly. I think if I can finish 21st, I'd be thrilled, or top 20. It's funny because like finishing in the top 20 for my first truck race, I was like thrilled, and I would love to do the same thing. Now, again, going to be very difficult. I would like to finish in the top 25, maybe, you know what I mean? So I'm very curious to see the level of attrition in that race. Very, very curious to see, again, what the strategy looks like. But I've watched so many NASCAR Cup races that I'm kind of, again, I feel like I know everyone, you know what I mean? But it's very, very different when you're on the track. And again, don't think I'll ever interfere with any of the playoff guys. And again, even if they are somehow needing to get by me, I don't plan on fighting those guys. Like, hey, you know what? I get it. Here you go. It is what it is. But I do want to be competitive. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot that I have to learn. Pit stops are going to be a different experience for me. Not having a pit speed limiter again, that's tough. There's small things here and there, but again, it's going to be fun. I'm bringing my girlfriend, bringing my family's going to be there. Friends of mine are going to come because again, NASCAR, I will give them a lot of credit. The races are big deals, no matter where it is. It's a great big deal. It's an exciting event. There's a lot of hype around every race. And I'm hyped. I'm excited about it. So it's again, we get into a lot of stuff with Chase Briscoe. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be still a lot more that we're going to do probably next week. Around the pre-race type ceremonies. But yeah, I mean, to get back to IndyCar, a little bit of news, but also has to do with NASCAR. Jimmie Johnson, our great patriot of marketing for our series,
Yep.
has chosen to retire, which I find very, the funniest part about, I'll tell a little story about Jimmie. Obviously, Saturday night is when my sponsor, before Laguna Seca, told everyone that I was going NASCAR Cup racing. So I didn't really say anything to anyone yet because I didn't know anything. I walk up to Jimmie before driver intros at Laguna. I said, so my sponsor last night told everyone that I was going NASCAR Cup racing at the Roval.
Put it lightly.
Do you have any advice for me? He's like, oh, you're going to get pushed around a lot. I said, yep, I expect that's everyone keeps telling me I'm basically going to get punched in the mouth when I go there. So hopefully there's a little bit more of a friendly experience outside of the car. But again, understandably, that in the car, I will get maneuvered around a little bit, which is, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a maneuverist as well. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Jimmie thought it was super cool. And I was like, hey, man, would love to call you sometime. He's like, yeah, I mean, I obviously don't know much about the current car, but he's got a lot of experience with a lot of the guys out there. So crazy to see him retire. Honestly, I thought he was going to be back.
I did too.
Not entirely sure what else he wants to do, but I see he doesn't have to be full-time in IndyCar, right? And like, if he wants to do the 500, guess what? I'm sure he'll be able to do it with Ganassi. If he wants to do all the ovals, guess what? I'm sure he'll be able to do it with Ganassi. So, maybe it's just time that, hey, the family, he's a family man. Like, spend more time with the family. His kids are growing up. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what he wants to do. Maybe he wants to do the double. There was a lot of all of a sudden chatter about Jimmie Johnson and Kyle Busch doing the double, which would be hilarious, honestly, and awesome. But again, it's like AJ Allmendinger said in our interview not too long ago, working together. Like, if there's more and more co-promoting, co-racing of whatever it is, like, again, the whole Kyle Busch thing, potentially doing the Indy 500, awesome. I don't know Kyle very well. He's got an interesting reputation, very talented driver. But yeah, I think it's great for the series, great for both series. And again, if him and Jimmie are doing that, they'll both be flying their own private jets back to Charlotte for the race. I mean, I think that'd be awesome. So surprising to see Jimmie retire, but also not really, because he did text me like a week ago because I asked him to be on this podcast, and he's like, text me about a million things that he was doing, and he said, don't retire. And I said, all right, yeah, I won't. I don't plan on it yet. So it was interesting that maybe he was giving me a hint that he was retiring from full-time IndyCar racing.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, no, he left the door open. It's full-time racing. That's exactly what he said when he retired from NASCAR. So I don't doubt that we'll be seeing him doing other things. I think he expressed interest in doing the garage. It's the whatever
Le Mans,
the Le Mans. So he's expressed
Garage
interest in
86 or Garage 66 or something like that.
Yeah. Doing that, yeah, he could come back to NASCAR. I'm sure Project 91 would love to have him if Hendrick wouldn't run a fifth car. So, and you know what? He's probably going to go out to Colorado, do a little skiing. So he's just going to take whatever opportunity comes towards him.
I mean, we saw Jimmie out at Goodwood having a great time. I got reports from Callum Ilott, who was also there, that Jimmie was having a great time out there. They saw each other. And I respect Jimmie for living life at the highest level. At some point, we are probably going to have Jimmie on this podcast. I don't know when. Might it be years from now? Potentially. But he has expressed interest in it. So we appreciate that. He knows that Speed Street does exist. It might be far from his neighborhood where he lives because, again, Jimmie's rich. But we will see. He might make it here at some point. But again, I see Jimmie's schedule next year. I'm going to predict it right now. We got Le Mans. We got the Indy 500, the Charlotte race, and probably all the IndyCar ovals. That's what I'm thinking he's going to do. Maybe dabble in some Rolex 24s, some Sebring 12 hours, things that are fun like that. So I could see that for Jimmie, and I'm excited for him. I mean, he's lived a great life. He's successful in everything. And, again, I think he's going to have another great shot at the Indy 500 next year if he comes back with Ganassi. So very interesting, situation there, because again, does it open up the 48 car in the IndyCar series for someone else on the road courses? Who knows? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Silly season continues on. Have you heard anything else about IndyCar silly season, or is that, with Jimmie retired, that's really about it?
Yeah, not really. I mean, that was the biggest news that I heard recently. Someone actually asked me that question the other day. But yeah, I think it's all's kind of calm. We got the schedule announcement, which is coming out literally like actually in 1 minute
Probably right
from
about now.
recording this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's about to come out. The schedule is releasing. We can even talk about it. But yeah, it's a lot of exciting things going on for IndyCar, which is great. And I think as a whole, we got to stay relevant somehow. And so we will. Hopefully, what I do in the Cup Series, I would love that to shine on IndyCar a little bit. You know what I mean? There's going to be some chatter about IndyCar. Maybe we help get some slightly more attention to IndyCar. So I actually have the schedule in my email, the IndyCar schedule,
Whoa.
because they
Okay.
send it out to us before it goes live. So
Ah.
considering it will be live by the time we we do this show, I will read it out to everyone. Interesting because we started this season in February and now we're starting in March. That is actually, I am reading this and I'm a little bit surprised. I like it though. So March 5th, we're in St. Petersburg. And if people remember, this year we had basically a race in February, a race in March, and a race in April. Tough, big separation. So now, which I like, we have 3 races in April, which I think is good. So April 2nd, we're at Texas. April 16th, we're in Long Beach. April 30th, we're at Barber Motorsports Park. So I think that's good. I think we keep some races. We're not too far separated.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the month of May, June, 2 races, which I think this year we had a lot more. We have the Streets of Detroit. We have Road America. July, we have, again, a lot of races. And also Detroit, not a doubleheader anymore. Mid-Ohio, Streets of Toronto, July 16. We got the 2 Iowa races. Hopefully they're at night. Who knows? And then August, we have 3 races. And then September, we have 2 races. So again, no races have been added to the schedule, which is, in my own personal opinion, it's sad. We need more races. I mean, the schedule to me right now looks tiny. But we will do the best, that we will do the best that we can with it. And the interesting thing about I don't see anything about the test. There was a rumor about the test being at like the preseason test being out in California.
Yep.
At Thermal, but I don't see anything about that. So I'm sure that'll be announced at a later date. So, exciting. A lot of races on the Big Bird on NBC. So yeah, we can get into that more on on next week's show when we get Joey back, because I'm sure Joey's going to have some things to talk about there. Still 1 race on Peacock, Streets of Toronto, 3 races on USA, but the rest of them are on NBC, the Big Bird. So very, very happy about that. But yeah, I think we basically got almost everything in there. So I would love to get to Chase Briscoe. We have a great chat with him. We are NASCAR Cup drivers now. So here is a great friend of mine, Chase Briscoe. All right, we have an incredible guest here on a series that's probably really only going to be 1 episode, but a very, very talented NASCAR Cup Series pilot, great man of Indiana, very talented, my midget racing coach, extreme winner in everything, essentially. Chase Briscoe, we appreciate you being here. First of all, tell us how you're feeling post-Texas. Great race for you, I would say. I mean, that looked like a difficult race for everyone, and things were breaking and people were crashing. It was hot, but how are we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we salvaged with what we had. Truthfully, I don't even think we had a 25th place car, and we somehow finished 5th with it. So kind of keeping our hopes alive in the playoffs. We definitely struggled. I feel like that's been our worst racetrack as a company with the next gen car for sure. So yeah, I mean, if you would have told me we were going to run 5th, I would have thought that meant 30 guys were going to crash out, but I did it. We got some track position there at the end and was able to block pretty hard and kind of maintain our track position and was able to finish 5th with it.
It's really interesting like that, because we obviously race there as well in IndyCar, and very different races for us, right? Like we're going probably 70 mile an hour, 60 mile an hour faster at some place. I don't know, maybe less, but there's a very, very different style. We can only run certain lines. We can't use the track as much as you guys can. Do you like racing at Texas? Did you kind of agree with everyone on the fact that, like, because like me personally, I used to like Texas before it was reconfigured. I thought it
Yep.
was a great race. I loved when IndyCar could run there 2, 3 wide, 6 rows deep. I mean, I think for sure. You know what, Texas? Let's just redo it. I mean, are you kind of on that same boat?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to run the old Texas. I was the first race on the new one, and I would agree. Like from a fan standpoint, like when I was watching, the old Texas looked awesome. Where the new Texas, it's terrible. For being honest,
Yeah.
like for you guys, for us, you can't pass, you can't run too wide. Like it's just not a very well built racetrack. So yeah, I mean, hopefully they redo it. I mean, whatever they do, it's not going to get any worse. I don't think so. Yeah, I definitely would like to see him redo it. You know, I would like for him to honestly destroy exactly what they have and just start from scratch. Like, don't try to make something out of what we have. Yeah, I definitely want to try something different. I don't know what that different is, but yeah, it definitely needs to do something different. It's not a very well put together racetrack for really any series. I don't feel like.
Well, you know what? It's you're exactly right, and I do think there needs to be a redo. And I really respect your race from Texas because I think as drivers, we know sometimes where we probably don't have what we need to win, right? But there's certain situations if there's a lot on the line, or let's say the team's giving you that chance to get track position, right? And you hold on to it. I think there's a lot of races that I would say the casual fan or maybe even some of the members of the media might not recognize as much as like we as a driver would recognize. You know what I mean? And so like with your playoff position and your need to finish where you did, great race, and I respect that. So I now want to move on to really the real question of this segment because we have announced that I'm going to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver for one race. I'm a big NASCAR guy now at the Roval. And so now we're basically just trying to learn. We've announced that I'm going to do this, driving the number 50 car, Floyd Mayweather's team, the TMT Racing Group. But there's a there's a bit of a communication there with RCR, I guess. You know, there's Tony Uri Jr. is my crew chief, so there's a lot going on here. But I need to learn a lot. There's only one practice session. You are
Oh,
successful.
you get 20 minutes.
20 minutes. So in that 20 minutes, and you're honestly road course ace, I would say Chase Briscoe, road course ace, big road
I don't
course
know
guy.
about that. Yeah, the last
What
couple of years, a lot closer, I guess.
what do I need to know right out the gate? I've talked to AJ Allmendinger a little bit already, talked to him a little bit, but like what is your like if you're getting into the new cup car, is it brakes? Is the gearbox, decent to work with? Is it what's the top two, maybe three things that I need to look for?
Yeah, I would say first off, you were like getting thrown to the wolves. it
Great.
like you it's so funny because I just had this conversation with Joey Hand a couple of months ago about how he's been running these cup road course races and like how you grew up and how Joey grew up. Like it's obviously a different background than like what we're doing now, right? And where you typically race, like contact is no good. Like you do not want to make where this cup race, literally lap one, turn one, you're gonna be like already banging off somebody's door, and like guys are just gonna be putting you 3, 4 wide. So I think that's the biggest thing to like be ready for because it is a totally different just environment. I mean, you've ran a couple NASCAR races, so you've seen it a little bit, but the cup guys, it is like so cutthroat from lap one. I mean, I don't know how many laps the Roval is, but it'll be a qualifying lap every single lap. But from a car standpoint, I think for you, it's honestly better than, I mean, you're in the Xfinity car on a road course, the old style stuff. And that's kind of what the old cup car was like, where it was really hard to drive, didn't stop, didn't do anything good, right? Well, this next gen car, I think, will be more similar to stuff that you've ran, where, I mean, the brakes are pretty good. It's still not going to be like an Indy car by any means, but it'll stop fairly decent. The gearbox is good. I think the biggest thing is just at the Roval, it's such a unique racetrack where the infield portion is so inviting to drive hard and overdrive and try to make up time. And you just go so slow. And honestly, it's so easy to crash in the infield part. So for me, like I just run 85, 90% in the infield. And then on the big track, it's very high speed, high commitment, elbows up. Like the more risk you take, the faster you go. So it's kind of a neat racetrack where you have two total opposite parts. But I would say, yeah, the car is fairly straight. Like it's pretty easy to kind of figure out. I feel like you can't drive it at any slip whatsoever. If you try to run sideways, you're going to spin out. But yeah, it's honestly not. I feel like with your background now with the next gen car, it's going to be easier than if you would have came into the old car, just because it doesn't do anything good. Where this car actually does some things good on the road course.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've actually done more like GT style racing than I think people remember. Like I did a whole year in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series, and like I did I've done the Indy 8 hour, I've done the Rolex 24 two or three times, and so like I definitely have driven heavier cars, but I think what is interesting is that again, so little track time, right? Like you're gonna run of that 20 minutes of practice, we're gonna try to do every lap, right? And then there's a qualifying session that again, we're not trying to qualify on the pole, I assume. So we're just going to try to do as many laps as possible. Is that qualifying session? Like, to be fair, I don't even know much about how NASCAR qualifying on road courses works. So I mean, I assume I can just run all the minutes.
Yeah, I don't even know how long it is. I think it's anywhere from 10, 15 minutes. But yeah, if I was you, I would just use it as two practice sessions because you can, in qualifying, you can run as much as you want. I mean, if you could get 10 laps in, you can run 10 laps. So, yeah, for you, like you said, I mean, realistically, you're not going to qualify on the pole and
nope.
Starting position. It's not really that important. Like for you, getting laps is going to be way more important. So, yeah, I think for you, that is the one good thing is you're going to get 40 minutes essentially of practice time. And, the other good thing is everybody's on the same playing field as you from a sense of driving this car on this racetrack. None of us have any more laps than you would have. So,
well, there was a test, though, wasn't there? There was a test.
Yeah, that was in like October of last year. Like the car's not the same anymore. So, I mean, yeah, idea, but it's totally different. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing for you is just going to be you're not going to get any respect. I'm just telling you right now.
Oh no, of course. Yeah. Like, I don't deserve it, and I don't expect it. Like
deserve it. Like, and it's the same thing that like Joey Hand fights. Truthfully, where Joey he could be running in the top 5, and because of the car he's in, that car that you're driving doesn't even run full time, so people aren't used to seeing it at all. So they know if I wreck this thing or if I shove him out of the way. And even they know that you're not going to run another race this year. Yeah. They're not going to have to deal with you. So who cares, right? So that's the one thing that is just going to be hard for you is like you could be having the race of your life. Like you could be in the top 5 and guys are just going to run through you because they know there's no repercussion for it. And that's the hard thing. I feel like in the cup deal, when you come in, like even as a rookie last year, I learned this, like it's very hard knocks. And I don't know if IndyCar is like that, but the cup deal is definitely like you have to earn your respect to get raced well. Until you like run a year, truthfully, guys just don't give you the time of day. And coming in and doing one race, that's the hard thing I feel like is just guys like I said, you could be running the race. You're like, you could be leading the race and guys are just going to drive through you because they're like, who the heck is this guy up here? And they know they're never going to race with you.
I mean, the interesting thing about it is I would say we say the same thing. Let's say if like when Fernando Alonso came to do the Indy 500, right? When Jimmie Johnson comes to do the Indy 500, right? Guess who the top people that we don't want to win that race are? Those guys. You know what I mean? Like anyone that comes in and, what?
Yeah, but you guys can't drive through them. You'll kill somebody.
Well, that's all. Yeah, exactly. But realistically, like we are all thinking in our heads, like we're going to beat these guys. So yeah. there is definitely some of that. And I go into it though, I think with an attitude, like again, if I get asked by media, like I watch every NASCAR race every weekend. I watch every Xfinity race as much as I can, right? Truck race. Like I really respect the NASCAR world. And I feel like I've always tried to say that. So like, again, I'm going into it knowing that it's very difficult. I'm going to go in there trying to learn, not mess up anyone's day, right? But like in the end, I am a competitor as well. Like I do want to go there and be as good as I can be, right? Because again, who knows what the future holds, right? Like this we're doing this deal with BitNile, our sponsor at IndyCar, because they are interested in what's going on in the NASCAR world, because I think NASCAR is doing a great job with everything right now. So, is there more in the future? Who knows? I would like to think so. What?
I would love to see it full time.
Well, I don't know, but let's not go that far yet. We got to still do a lot more in IndyCar. But is there a Chase Briscoe double coming up in the future? Is there a Chase Briscoe in the Indy 500? Do you watch IndyCar racing? Like, give us a little bit of a feel for that.
I mean, I definitely watched the month of May. I mean, being an Indiana guy, like the Indiana 500 is super special and important to me. I try to watch as many of the IndyCar races as I can. A lot of the time, obviously, we're kind of going against each other. But yeah, I tell you the same answer I tell everybody in May when all the media ask.
Yeah.
I would love to start and park the 500. I have zero desire to race. Great enough. I'm not willing to risk what it's willing to take. But I've always said I want to do the walk. I want to do driver intros. I want to do back home again in Indiana and do the national anthem. I want to do the parade lap. I want to take the green flag, lap one, pull that thing down to pit road and get out and watch. I have race it, but I would love to start and park it just to say that I got to experience all the pre-race festivities and get to do all those things. I think that would be so special. I mean, even if it's just the parade lap, like I just want to be a part of that. I don't want to race. And I don't know, it might change one day, but I have zero desire right now. I'm just not brave enough. I know that I'm not willing to do what it takes to win the race. I don't feel like. And I know that it's probably the same for you. Like when you go and ran my midget, right? Like when you are sitting in the grandstands, like you're sick to your stomach. You're like, there's no way I'm going to do that. But then when you're out there, it's really not as bad as it looks. And I'm sure the IndyCar deal, like the 500 is probably the same way. Like it doesn't feel like you're running 230, like you could die at any point.
I mean, sort of. I don't know.
Yeah, that you're like hauling the mail, but like you make moves, right? And like you make these passes, and on TV, I'm like, holy smokes, like that was brave, right? But in the car, it probably doesn't feel as sketchy as when you're watching it. So who knows? I might one day, but as of right now, I have zero desire. But I just like watching race too much.
Well, you know what? Honestly, it is cool to hear you say that because, again, I think there's a lot of that. We hear about that a lot, right? AJ Allmendinger said exactly the same thing, right? Like AJ Allmendinger came close to winning that race his first year doing it, right? With Penske, great setup. But again, he has that 1%, right? He said, if you're not going in there able to dedicate 100% to like winning that race, then it's probably not, the right thing to do. And I respect that because, again, now, to start and park, you'd still have to qualify, and qualifying is one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, maybe I'll get lucky, and there'll only be 32 cars there that year or something. But
Chase will show up in the T car ready to go.
If I do 100%, I would not get hurt. Then I would 100% do it. But I don't know. It'd just be hard to risk. Like I've hit the wall at 180, 200, and it hurts bad. I couldn't imagine 230.
Yeah, well, trust me, 230, not a great hit there at that speed either.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
So here's one question I have about my future Cup racing endeavor. Why are all these cars catching on fire, and what do I need to do to avoid catching on fire?
we fixed that, I think. I don't know. It's weird. So we had it happen probably 2 months ago at Richmond, didn't hit anybody, didn't hit the wall, nothing, came down, did a pit stop, caught on fire. Then Darlington, Harvick had the same thing happen. Yeah. And it was the rubber was getting kind of stuck above the underbody and in between the exhaust and just catching the rubber on fire, which then catches the whole inside of the car on fire. So they've made some improvements now. I think it's fixed. You'll be the first to know if it isn't. Yep. But yeah, I think we're good to go. I will say, definitely, I don't think these next-gen cars are as hot as the old car, but, I mean, you've ran a couple races to kind of see how hot they can be. I would definitely say make sure you have a cool shirt. That is number one. That is a total game changer. I mean, it literally changes your life. So make sure you have one of those.
I'm bringing mine. I'm bringing my little cool vest from the IndyCar. So, I hope it works. You
definitely want that. The helmet hose is obviously a plus. But, I would say the cool shirt's the biggest thing. And the Roval is you're good to go.
I got it right here.
The Roval for me is, I feel like, one of the most physically, demanding races for whatever reason, because I mean, it's normally fairly hot, but I get really motion sick at the Roval. That's like the only track because it's so tight and just you're constantly turning and it's a pretty long race. So yeah, be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. One question I guess I had about road racing as well in these stock cars, is there a lot like with the tire wear, is there a lot of buildup offline when you guys are kind of running green for so long? And do they like do you find that because in IndyCar, like we have a like obviously we don't have stages, so we go a long way under green. And if you get offline, it can be a complete disaster. But you see a lot more side by side racing in the Cup Series. So is there a lot of rubber buildup offline? Like, is there a lot of do the tires shed a lot of rubber during these races?
Yeah, I would say the Roval is one of the least, I feel like, because it is so tight. Like a lot of the time we're running too wide. Now the paint can kind of be slick there, and like rubber gets built off. But a lot of the time at the Roval was fairly clean, so I don't think you're gonna have any issues there. Um, yeah, I would say the ride quality, like these cars don't take curbs and stuff as well, so
Yes.
you got to kind of watch. But I would say the rubber buildup's honestly not bad at all at the Roval. It's pretty good. And tire wear, the old car, like you would fall off a lot on tires, but the new car it doesn't seem like it does. The thing I really don't like about the next gen car is road racing, because I felt like with the old car, it broke. Like the brakes were terrible. It didn't want to stop. Didn't do anything good, right? So if you were one of those, I felt like there was 4 to 6 of us that understood how to like break it properly. Like you could make up a ton of time in the brake zone. Where now, literally the whole field can bury it off in there easily. So it makes it so hard to pass. So that's the one thing that's kind of a struggle for me on the road courses is you can't outbrake guys really anymore because the cars stop so easily and they downshift so easily and do all the things so good that there's no advantage to being like a good breaker now.
What's in is there? I find that very interesting because I experienced the same thing, and this is like it's not the exact same thing, but in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series, the car has ABS, right? And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of amateur drivers in there as well, and people that aren't as experienced. But with that brake system, they could brake as deep as you did because it was like all they had was an assist. So that's interesting that you say that it brings the brake zones closer together. When it comes to the bias adjustment in the car, is that very effective? Is it very helpful to use? Like, how much are you? AJ said that there maybe isn't as much wheel hopping as there used to be.
Yeah, there's definitely that's like kind of what I was saying before. It's like before, the guys that would try to say, I felt like it was like Chase Elliott, Cindric, Allmendinger, myself. There was a couple other guys that can like, say they could get to the 300. Well, if them other guys would try to get to the 300, they would just wheel hop and wreck. Where now we all drive to the 200 and there's not even a chance of wheel hop. So yeah, I would say wheel hop is a lot less in this car. I've not had wheel hop in this car. Now I've shut the motor off because the rear tires lock up, but it
Oh,
never. Yeah, the brakes are really really good. So I'm sure they're nothing like an IndyCar still, but yeah, I would say that you won't have to worry about that. One thing, make sure you have a 14-inch wheel. That's a game changer too.
okay. 14-inch wheel. We're gonna get it. I literally go tomorrow to do the seat fit. So like I will be flying there tomorrow, ready to get things going. Is there anything when it comes to the seat fit that's important? Like, do you get into the car on the road course and all of a sudden you think the gear lever's too far away, or is there anything that in particular there is? Obviously, the 14-inch wheel that's very helpful, but is there anything else in particular when it comes to the fit inside the car that helps?
I would say, I mean, definitely since you're running the Roval, you're gonna want your shoulders and stuff is tight. I don't run any rib supports, but some guys do. And then the headrests, like make sure your headrest. I get mine where I literally can't move my head, just because I think it makes it easier. You're not getting slung around and everything else, so that's important. But yeah, the 14-inch wheel is a must. Um, Make sure you run the virtual mirror if they give you the option.
Yes.
And where I would put it is I put it right on like the B post, right by where like your little side small mirror would be. That way you just look at the same spot. And then when you're going through the corner, you literally just glance over and your mirror's right there. Like some guys run it up here. And then if you're going through the corner, you got to look up at it and you can't see the racetrack. So I put it right here to the left, and then I can still see the racetrack in my peripherals.
So there's a rear view camera, correct? Is that
Yeah.
that
That's the virtual mirror thing I'm talking about.
Okay, but there's only one of those. Like you have to like instead of putting it in the center or up top, you can put it in. You can put it in the little like side mirror area.
No, like the camera is on the back, but I'm just saying where you put the display. Put the
Oh,
display right, like right on the dash, all the way to the left. That's the
okay.
best spot.
All
Because
right.
if
I
you
mean,
put
I like
the
that.
mirror is or up above you, you can't see the racetrack while you're looking at it. So if you put it down there, you can like literally look and still see the racetrack. And when you're like say like the Roval, you run up on the oval part, right? So like you're in the banking, you're gonna be turning left, and like you literally just like barely glance over, and it's right there.
I
It's
like
a
that.
huge, yeah.
I like that. I will. I'm literally going to make a list of all these things. Now, one more. Before I let you go, I will say, one more thing. Banking, easy, flat. Are we just going out there
Oh,
lap one and flat through the banking?
easily flat. Like
Okay, good.
yeah, yeah. So that
It,
was fun. Yeah, you mentioned that. So a couple months ago, I did that F1 video with Schumacher and Magnussen, and they drove the stock car,
yes,
and like terrified of the banking. And I'm like, that is
really.
literally the easiest thing you will do. It's the easy wide open, like no problem. The only spot it won't maybe be wide open, it should be fairly easily wide open still. But in 3 and 4, the oval, there's a couple bumps, and like if you're really hard on the limiter of the shock, you're bounced a little bit there, and you just might want to roll up to like 80% just to like make it a little bit easier into that final chicane. But everywhere else, I mean, it is easy wide open.
That's awesome. Well, give us a quick look at the rest of the season for you. I mean, we're going into obviously this show is before Talladega and before the Roval. Talladega, obviously, I mean, it's hard to ask people what they
You
expect
want
there because
to run another cup race? You can come run Talladega for me.
you know what? I'm good. I'll let you guys do that. It seems like when you hit the wall, it hurts a lot more now. So I'm going to let you guys.
Talladega, like for IndyCar guys watching, is that how it is? You think for NASCAR guys watching the 500, the Indy 500?
So I don't think so because I really do want to do that. Like I want to do the Daytona 500. I want to race at Talladega. But what I find the most interesting part is just how like all the air works. I love the science behind it because for us, we obviously can't race, 3 rows deep, side by side, all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I find it fascinating how you guys actually do make each other's cars move or figure out the right lane. So again, it is crazy to watch because we're like, well, they're all just going to crash at one point, and you just got
Yeah,
to hope that you get through that. So
yeah.
is that
The first,
yeah, so is that's obviously got to be tough, but let's say you roll the dice correct and it goes well, right? Is it one of those things that you hate where it's at on the schedule or it's just kind of part of the game and, we're looking at the next few races with a very positive attitude?
yeah. I mean, it sucks where it's at on the schedule. I mean, I think all the playoff guys, right? Like, it's a huge. I wouldn't say it's a gimmick, but like, it's very like the best guy doesn't win. Like, you can
Yeah.
go there and you can try to race from lap one and try to lead every lap, and you can finish 37th.
Yeah.
Or you can literally ride a half track behind all day long, never even try to race. Like just go out there, ride around. Don't get by anybody. And you're probably going to finish in the top 10 at the end of the day. And that's the part that I don't like is that if you try to race, it can take you out of a championship. Where if you just go there and ride around, it could still take you out of a championship, but you're probably going to finish good. And that's the hard part. Like for us, like we just got out of a meeting for like an hour talking about what's the strategy because for us, we're 4 points out. So we need some points.
Yeah.
So we could leave Talladega 15, 20 points up, or we could leave 20, 30 points back. And it's do you go try to race and crash? Do you try to race and hope you miss crash? Do you ride around in the back and crash? Do you ride around in the back and miss it all and then finish good? There's just so many variables that are out of your control when you go there. That's kind of frustrating from a driver's standpoint.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. I mean, as a driver, I feel like they're when people look at our sport, I feel like they don't see how many things are affecting what can affect us. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
see, well, if he didn't win because he didn't drive it right or something like that, and it's like, well, actually, no, there could be a lot of different things that
Yeah.
affect that. And that's what makes it tough. And I think for you guys, more than any other racing series really in the world, there is a lot of a gamble. Like it's a tough situation to go into when you're trying to be the most competitive guy that you can be, the smartest guy that you can be, and something else happens out of your control. So I definitely feel for you on that, but I'm excited to watch, and honestly excited to share the track with you here soon, Chase. Last time we did it, it was in a very dirty place, and I was doing 6 front flips, and we actually probably never raced together because I wasn't good enough.
If you flip at the Roval, you've really done something. So I'm going to hope and pray again.
Yeah, we'll try to avoid that. But I appreciate the advice, honestly. I'm going to be out there early Friday before the race weekend to get myself, maybe walk the track, do a little recon.
Might be the first NASCAR guy to ever do a track walk.
I cannot wait to get out there with my notepad. I'm going to do a track walk. So consider me first Cup guy to do a track walk. So I can't wait. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. The only thing I can say is for advice, don't suck. It's easy as that.
All right. Yeah, don't suck. Well, Chase Briscoe, everyone, greatest advice of all time. Incredible interview there with Chase. Great friend of mine, now friend of the show. I mean, true honesty about what I'm about to expect. I mean, did that surprise you at all, Ben? I mean, that was an honest opinion.
He's a genuine dude. Yeah.
He is a genuine dude. I like Chase a lot. So yeah, it's been a great episode. I really, really have enjoyed talking to Chase. I hope we actually have him on again. I would like to talk to him in the off season as well. But right, to finish the show, obviously we have a great segment. We have a segment that I think is truly unique. And we're going to go with the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week. We're going with the 1988 Indianapolis 500. 1988 Indianapolis 500 is a race that my father was in. He did not do well. My father finished 29th, but we're going to go with a driver who I don't think was on our list. And it's an interesting name. And Ben, you can double check this because I don't know, but Ludwig Heimrath the second.
No, definitely not.
No, Ludwig Heimrath Jr. Excuse me.
Okay.
So let me try to figure out how to spell the name.
Yeah, definitely clears the list. I think you're good.
Ludwig Heimrath Jr. Jr. Yes. Okay, there it is. We got him on the. Oh, he's got a cool car. He drove the Mackenzie wagon. So Canadian fella. This is the 1988 race. So Ludwig Heimrath Jr., born in Scarborough, Ontario, Canadian racing driver, started driving in go-karts, Formula Fords, won the Ontario Formula Ford Championship. Guess what? I finished second in the Ontario Formula Ford Championship because I missed a race, but I did win a lot of races in the Ontario Formula Ford Championship. Rookie of the year, no big deal. But I did that the same year that I was doing the Skip Barber National Championship. I was doing the Canadian Formula Ford Championship, Ontario Formula Ford Championship. So very interesting. It's actually something that people kind of forget about my career because I won the Skip Barber National Championship, but did not win the Canadian Formula Ford Championship because I missed a race. But Ludwig was named Rookie of the Year, winning a race, 2 pole positions. Also drove in Le Mans. So that's really cool. I know this name for sure. I've definitely known it in the past, but definitely thought that, hey, it's an interesting name. It's a name that I have not heard in a while. So you know what? Great Canadian racing driver, Ludwig Heimrath Jr. So that's our random Indy 500 driver of the week. I think we had a great show today. Very, very excited about it. And very, very excited to go NASCAR Cup racing. So I think we will have another episode probably before that. But yeah, we're going Cup racing. So we'll see you next time on Speed Street. Thank you for listening. Please follow our social channels. Please tweet at Joey Molinaro and tell him that you're proud of him for being a great dad. And we got great merch now as well. So get some t-shirts, follow the social channels, support your friends, and be a friend, tell a friend.